Blog Talk Radio.
Choices, decisions, frustrations, and pain. Knowing I'm going to forget her someday. While I still can, I'll challenge all my loved ones, every friend, to look inside their hearts and understand that I will love them. I will love them while I still can.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I am the host and founder of Alzheimer Speaks, Lori LeBay, and I don't know where you are, but it is a gorgeous day here in Minnesota. The sky is blue, and the trees are just all covered with snow, but it's really quite pretty, even though it's very cold here. I'm indoors, so I'm enjoying it from my view here. I want to, before we start the show, just explain a little bit about what Alzheimer Speaks is, because we always get new listeners, and I think it's important for you to know what our foundation is and kind of what our mission is. So Alzheimer Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. And we truly believe by joining forces and sharing knowledge and just having these everyday conversations about life with dementia, that we are going to be able to remove the stigmas attached to memory loss, and that we're going to be able to help people live better with this disease. We'll also, through these conversations, give and share the true needs of this disease, removing some of those myths that create such fear and isolation for both the person with dementia and those who care for them. At our core, we believe collaboratively we can win this battle against dementia, and I know we're making a difference because of all of you. Each of your likes and shares and clicks while you're sitting here listening to this show has a huge impact, and I want to thank you so much for just taking the time to put your finger on your mouse and click that like and share it with if it's your LinkedIn friends, your Google circles, your Facebook tribe, whatever it is. Maybe you like to tweet. Maybe you like to share it on other platforms like Dig and Stumbler. All of those things help get information to people in need. And one of the things that I have found so fascinating on my 30-year journey with this is how many people that I knew but didn't know were dealing with some type of dementia. They either themselves or knew somebody who was struggling with the disease. And when we push this information out, we just make it available. So when people are ready to grab it, it's there. And again, all of your clicks and likes are making a huge difference because Dr. Oz and Share Care named us as the #1 influencer regarding Alzheimer's online, which is just, huge. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you because this is my passion and my life's work to connect people. And we want to be able to continue to raise awareness and give voice to those afflicted with memory loss, their care partners, as well as advocates and business professionals supporting the cause. We just can't be driven by fear anymore. Alzheimer Speaks is really about giving people hope, and together I think we can teach people to live with the disease, not as the disease. Now, as far as our conversation goes on this show, it is very free-flowing, and we love our audience to participate, and you can do that in a couple of different modes. One, you can use your chat box, and you can go ahead and put in a question or comment, and I will pull that in as soon as there's a break in the conversation with our guests. The other is you can call in live to the show. And that number is 714-364-4757. Again, that is 714-364-4757. And we, like I said, we'd love to hear your voice. Sometimes people have a comment, sometimes it's a question that they would like to ask one of our guests, and we are definitely open to both. I also like to give a shout out to some of my favorite organizations. ADI, or Alzheimer's Speaks International, is an absolutely fantastic organization that so many people don't know about, but they are the organization of all the Alzheimer's associations around the world. So no matter where you're located, if you are looking for an Alzheimer's association, go to Alzheimer's Disease International and you'll be able to find the closest one to you. On top of that, they are just involved with all of the global networking that is going on, and they are doing some incredible work, and they have some wonderful, wonderful resources. In addition to Alzheimer's, there are some other types of dementias. There's over 100 different types of dementias. But I'm just going to mention a couple of other organizations that can be really helpful to you. One is the Lewy Body Association, and again, you can just Google them, and Lewy is LEWY, Lewy Body Dementia Association. There is also the Association for the Frontal Temporal Degeneration, and their website is just aftd.org. So the and A and then FTD, kind of like the flowers, .org, is another great association with very specific information for you. There's also the Aphasia Association for people sometimes are struggling with their speech. They are just a wonderful organization as well. The Alzheimer's Studies group, and you can just Google again Alzheimer's Studies, and you will find information on a clinical trial that is in its third trial, and for Tau study. So check out Alzheimer's Studies. And the Purple Angel Project, for those of you that are not aware of that, is a fairly new project in the works. And it is a new symbol, new global symbol for dementia. No words, just a globe and an angel. If you'd like more information, you can go to my website, Alzheimer's Speaks, and I'd be more than glad to talk to you about how you can participate in that project by, helping be an ambassador to spread the word on that. And then a couple of recreational things that I think are just really fun. Music First with Choral Health. Music is just so important and so key to most of us in our lives, and it can really help change our reactions and switch our moods, and Choral Health has done some massive research on that. Music First is actually an app that you can download and have it be portable. Puzzle with Me is just puzzles that were designed specifically for older clientele, smaller number of pieces, but larger, easier to handle. And then the Jiminy Wicket program, which I totally love, which is a croquet game, which is intergenerational, and is just doing some marvelous work. So enough for my housekeeping here. I'm very excited to go to our program today because we're going to be talking about dementia and Alzheimer's awareness projects, and our first guest is Vivian Green Korner, and she's doing some pretty cool stuff, so I can't wait for this conversation to start. Vivian earned her MA degree from New York University, and she is a certified Dementia Care Practitioner. She is currently in private practice, and she assists individuals with dementia and their family caregivers through the caring process. She offers dementia care training to healthcare professionals and presentations to the community. Prior in her career, she held a position of director at the Kaplan Adult Research Center. a social adult day care program for 17 years. And her clinical experience is extensive, including hospital, residential, and community-based settings. For over 20 years, she has facilitated caregiver support groups through the affiliation of the Alzheimer's Association. And her knowledge and guidance has helped hundreds of caregivers provide appropriate, competent, and sensitive care to avoid burnout. So welcome, Vivian. How are you today?
I'm very good, and I appreciate so much being part of your program and the incredible work that you're doing. So thank you very, very much. And we're enjoying a snowy day in New Jersey.
Yes, yeah, you are. It's coming your way there. Sorry about that. But, hopefully it's not as bad as what was it, Texas? It just sounded horrible down there. The weather is always interesting this time of year. So I just hope everybody is safe and warm and dry, and be careful out there driving and walking. It can be just as dangerous walking sometimes. So I'm really excited to talk to you about what all you are doing. And you have gotten started with a special awareness week in your area. So why don't you just tell us what do you call the program and how did it get started?
Well, this was a program that I started in my neighboring town. I lived in northern New Jersey, and I just felt that there was a need to bring awareness on a community level, both to lend support, to eliminate the stigma that you spoke about for individuals that have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or a related form of dementia, to lend support to caregivers who are very stressed for the most part, isolated, and I felt needed to get more information about the available services and to raise the awareness of community members. I thought that bringing it on a town level was really, really important, and it was successful beyond my wildest dreams.
Oh, wonderful. Now, what's the name of the program that you kicked off, and when exactly did you do it?
It was called Cresskill, which is the name of the town, Alzheimer's Awareness Week, and we just had it in November 17th through the 22nd. So it was a week-long event, and it occurred in various venues throughout the town, at the senior center, at the public library, at the physical rehab center. We have assisted living. We have a Sunrise. We have a Care One, which is skilled nursing and respite and nursing care. So we had it at various venues throughout that town.
Okay. When you decided to pull this together, who did you even begin to approach? Because there might be other people listening that are interested in wanting to do something. Becoming dementia friendly and dementia aware is huge over in the UK, and it really is getting a very slow start here in the US. But it's really starting to bubble, and at least people are getting more familiar with the terms of what it even means. So, how did you get started? How did you formulate all of this?
Well, I literally marched myself into the mayor's office. I had made a call. No, I had made a call to the mayor's office, and they put me through to the administrator. And I asked if I could meet to discuss a project that I'm considering on Alzheimer's, and for the reasons I just mentioned. And surprisingly, he said, "Why don't you come in tomorrow?" And I marched myself in, and I started to talk to him about the kind of programs that I wanted to involve in the community and the reason why. And the man literally stopped me from speaking, put sort of his hand up and said, "I understand." He said, "My wife died of Alzheimer's disease over 10 years ago, and I was completely on my own. Nobody really understood what I was going through, and there were no services for me. So this is going to happen. And he said, we're even going to proclaim this Alzheimer's Awareness Week in Cresskill. And that's how it started.
Wow. That's fantastic.
I asked him, who is the next person you think I should speak with? How do you think I should go? Just so that I would connect with him and his resources. And he suggested the next person I go to, library. He said the libraries often have presentations. Why don't you go speak to the head librarian? So I went to the head librarian the next couple of days with the same introduction. And the head librarian stopped me again in my conversation and said, I'd welcome this. I understand. My mother has Alzheimer's disease. And it went on and on like that.
You know, one of the things that, I get on my little platform and I just kind of jump up and down, and so I love what you're saying, but it really is as simple as just starting a conversation. This disease has touched so many, but there's not an outlet, for people to speak about it or to get involved at a local level where people feel that they can individually contribute and make a difference. And I just, I love the passion in your voice and the determination and the tenacity that you're just, plugging ahead with this, because look at the results you're getting by just approaching, just talking to people. And, one of the things that I've found here in Minnesota, and I've really found it throughout the country, is, there's two different kind of platforms going on out there right now in terms of becoming dementia-friendly and being aware. And one is a very academic and organizational structure, and the other is really grassroots. Just let's have a conversation and let's get it done. And the difference that I see in terms of the impact of both of those groups is that the grassroots has so much passion that they are, in my eyes anyways, pushing things through so much faster and touching people on a deeper level. Are you seeing that at all, Vivian?
Oh, absolutely. And it's so prevalent. I was honestly very taken back by this. In my private practice, and when I am running my caregiver support groups, people come to me. And so I'm hearing their stories and I'm hearing their concerns and I'm giving them my support and guidance. This was the first time I reached out to the community, and I was truly overwhelmed by how many people are impacted by this disease. And it's so prevalent, and people really do want support. They truly do. So that grassroots, it's igniting.
Yeah.
I've heard it referred to as the silver tsunami, and I'm telling you that is what I experienced when I sort of walked from merchant to merchant. The final one was that we had asked one of the local merchants if they would give food for one of the events, coffee and refreshments. And, first her response was a little bit taken back, like, who are you and what organization? I said, no, I'm not part of an organization. I'm a person, just one person. Well, who are your sponsors? No, I don't have sponsors. It was like, not that she thought I was shady, but it was sort of a concept she didn't understand. Yep. So, when we talked more and she began to understood that this was legitimate and who was involved, and that maybe from a business perspective, it might be a good idea for her to have a little note saying that she may donate the refreshments. I asked her, I don't know if you know of anybody who's impacted by Alzheimer's or somebody in your family. And she said to me, my mother has Alzheimer's. I take care of my mother. And had I not asked her that question, I don't think she and I would have had that conversation.
Yep. It's fascinating when you get out there and talk to the people. You know, when I go out and speak, a lot of times I will ask a room, and there can be hundreds of people in the room, and I'll ask everyone to stand up if they're able. And then I ask about 6 questions. Do you know, or did you know, someone who had dementia? It might be a mother, a parent, a sibling, a aunt or uncle. And by the time I'm done with my questions, I can have a room of 1,000 people, and there might be 2 still standing. And people are shocked. They are absolutely shocked how prevalent this is and how little conversation there is. And that alone just gets the chatter going. And so I think it's so important, because so much of the time we are so busy trying to make people different that we forget how similar we all are. Mm-hmm. And it's the similarities that give us the calmness, that give us that I'm not alone in this. And it helps us not feel so sorry for ourselves sometimes, It helps us realize that there is support, if we look for it and reach out, and it also teaches us that it's our responsibility to help share resources and knowledge. Once you've been through this, I've never met anyone who hasn't been, significantly impacted by this disease that doesn't want to see things change. And they're willing to help, but, somebody needs to orchestrate it. And, that's what I love about what you did, to do a full week's awareness. This isn't just a one-time seminar. This is a major event. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit more. What the heck did you do for a week? Who was involved? What did it look like?
I took into, first of all, there are 2 aspects. I like to work with what the community resources are, who are the providers, and sort of lent its particular program to Cresskill. I'm doing another event because people heard about it and they said, we'd like to do it in our town. That town has other aspects to it. So this is not written in stone. This is what was available in Cresskill and what their interests were, and also who the providers were that lived or worked in the Cresskill area. So the first program we had was a senior identification program. Now, this is a program that is in fact comes from the Freemasons, who offer a child protection program. It's an identification program, and I met them at a health fair, and I said, issues of seniors wandering is huge. So we certainly could benefit from an identification program, which means that the senior came in and had a photograph taken and a dental swab and fingerprinting and a video, and that information, that kit, then was given back to the caregiver. So in case, God forbid, there was a wandering, they could take that kit and go directly to the police. It was a terrific program. We had a program on a Sunday which I wanted to reach out specifically to adults caring for their parents, recognizing that sandwich generation is working, so that program would have to be on a Sunday. And I wanted to have a program where they would just connect with one another, not necessarily have a presentation. So they literally, it was at a wonderful gourmet we had a cooking class there, and the adults cooked together, and it was sponsored by one of a place called Memory Care Living that sponsored the event. But they really, and I said to them, there is no presentation, just have fun. but I'm asking you, if you, after you're cooking, if you could chat with somebody, exchange an email address, a telephone number, so that you have somebody who's going through what you are, that you could just send an email, pick up the phone, maybe meet later for a cup of coffee. Well, I cannot tell you what that event was like. It was a rainy day. They went way beyond the time that we were expected to be there. And then when we said, it's sort of time to leave, they were outside still chatting under their umbrellas. That's how much they needed to connect with one another. And I really believe, had I not created this opportunity, those connections might not have been made.
Oh, I totally believe that. Totally believe that. It's incredible, and you can't describe when you see those connections being made. I mean, it really, for me, it takes my breath away.
It really took my breath away, and that was the first day. I could have stopped there, in terms of what my dream and my goal was. It was satisfied by the first day, and then it went there, beyond there. We had a gerontologist the next day who was at the senior center who talked about successful aging, about what caregivers need to do to stay healthy for themselves. And we got an enormous response to that. Safety in the home and medications and how to remain social and how to be active, because, with caregivers, as we know, we end up being last on the list. And it's very, very important to remain healthy and find ways to reach out and ask for help from friends and family members. And the gerontologist did a terrific presentation. And we also had a presentation on Alzheimer's from a medical perspective in terms of what's the latest research and what are the medications and what are the stages. We had a presentation on fall prevention. And beyond fall prevention, what was a big takeaway for me was how important it is, not just adapting our environment, but really being prepared in caring for somebody with Alzheimer's to be able to make the required adaptations. Nothing is written in stone, how we have to be flexible and how we have to be adaptive to stay the course. We had a program on dementia and driving, on what are the warning signs and how to manage Alzheimer's, caring for the caregiver. We had a program, the Alzheimer's Association was involved in conversations about dementia. We had a neurologist who came, and hers was questions you always wanted to ask a neurologist but were afraid to ask. And we had memory screening during the week. Our library had tables with resources for caregivers, the service providers, all the resources, because I'm finding also, especially in my private practice, this is not where we were 10 years ago. There are home health aides that now have dementia care training. There are so many services that are available out there for individuals with Alzheimer's and support for caregivers. Part of the week was really bridging what caregivers need and what services there are now that are available. This is not something that caregivers need to do alone anymore. That's history as far as I'm concerned. So it was a great week. It was a great week.
I bet. Is this city looking at doing this again, do you know, or is this going to become an annual?
Absolutely. They approached right away and said, what can we do next year? So there's already a discussion about what to do next year.
Oh, wonderful. That's fantastic. Well, it's nice to see the excitement the implementation and then the enthusiasm to carry that over, with the connections. Can you tell people, one of the things I didn't really ask you to go into was, what made you get so involved? You must have some personal story back there that, that's driving this passion.
Involved in dementia care?
Mm-hmm.
When I headed my adult daycare program, that's when I first entered into the world of dementia care. And it was, in fact, I was hired not to necessarily run programs, but to oversee and expand programs. I had a strong management background in healthcare. I did fundraising. So they really asked me to come on and market the program and expand the program. But I had a terrific staff. I was so impressed with their way to connect in such a positive, life-affirming way to individuals with Alzheimer's. I just fell in love from the beginning. I just fell in love with the work. And I saw the need for caring for caregivers, how they were feeling so stressed out and overwhelmed that one piece was caring for their family member through adult daycare services, but there was another important piece, which is caring for the caregiver, and that's where I started to get involved. And secondly, in our program did allow home health aides, and they were wonderful, very compassionate people, but they were not trained in dementia care. And I saw that they just didn't understand it, and they were not providing effective, meaningful care, and they themselves were suffering, the paid caregivers, and I felt there was a need to offer training to them, and that's how I started. Okay. And then I felt there was a need to bring it to a community level.
Yep. Well, and I think, so many of us have been touched personally by the disease, but this just shows, you don't have to have it in your own family in order to be ignited. I mean, when you open your eyes and you look, I mean, you can see the challenges out there, and it's so exciting that you want to make a difference, and you are making a huge, huge difference in your community. And so I personally just want to thank you for that, because
I have to add, Lori, that you asked how it started, but which it was 20 years ago, but 5 years ago my mother showed signs, she's 92, of dementia, and now my mother is being cared for in her home, but my mother has dementia. So I now have experience it personally. And it does lend me. It's really, really hard. And what I've learned now, which I share with my clients, is I have two mothers. I have the mother that raised me and the mother I have now. And that's just something that I have come to experience from having a family member. That was a new perspective as a result of what I am going through with my own mother.
It is amazing how it changes, the look and the feel of it. When you're in the trenches. I probably shared this a couple of times, but we always get different audiences, so I'm going to mention it again. But I was speaking to a large group one year, and a man in the front just started sobbing, just hysterically sobbing, and somebody at his table came, ran out of the room and then came back. I mean, he just couldn't even really move because he was just so touched by the presentation that I was having. The person runs back into the room and puts before him a big roll of toilet paper because he's just literally sobbing. And this is like a 40-year-old man. And so after the presentation, I talked to him, and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He says, "I just apologize." He says, "I have been in this business." He says, "I have been an administrator for 21 years, and I have always given families all kinds of advice." And he said, "But now my dad has it."
Mm-hmm.
And it's so different. And he told me he just appreciated my presentation because, I'm all what I call emotional-based training, so I get people to feel. We laugh and we cry, and because all those emotions, they're all bundled up in it. But he just said, I really didn't have a clue what this was like until I went through it. And he said, some of the stuff I told people, he says, I'm ashamed I said that to people. They must have just thought I was crazy. He said, because when you're in this, it's just different. It's just different. And we have to, when we're supporting people, we have to not just look at the medical facts, but we have to look at the emotional impact and, the resources and where everybody is at in their own lives. And he just says, I have been changed forever with this disease. And he said, I will, and I have, and I do talk differently to my families now, but we have to be more compassionate. This isn't a black and white change gears type thing. And so I had to throw that in there because I do think that it is very important. We can be really book savvy, but you have to have the compassion to match this, to move this, to really make the difference. And I think that's part of, what I was talking about earlier between the kind of different styles that are out there between the grassroots and the very more academic and medical models that, just because you have a degree, just because you have a position does not make you compassionate and does not make you necessarily understand. And I'm not saying that people don't and that there aren't those that can have both, but there's definitely, it can be a difference. And it's hard to push things forward and make a connection with people on the level that needs to be made, I think, to really make this whole awareness and education blossom. If you're missing that compassionate piece, it's just not going to move, not right at the pace it needs to move. It's just so important. Can we talk a little bit more about, and I know you've touched on it, but I'd like to dive in a little deeper to the benefits of those who were involved. So from those who helped you pull this together to businesses and sponsors to the people that participated, what were the benefits that you feel that each got?
I do think, first of all, the feedback I got from caregivers was that the topics they felt were extremely relevant to what they needed, and also they appreciated the support that they got, the connections that were being made, and being with other caregivers right in their community, in the public of the community, made a difference. That's different than when you are going to, let's say, a caregiver support group. You're right in you're in that public library. You are right in the senior center talking about Alzheimer's. And do you understand what I'm saying? It becomes a very public forum. And that's what I want. I wanted it right out there, right in that community, and that's what people were talking about that they appreciated. The merchants, it was really, as you said, starting to have that conversation. I had a personal situation in my town. I had gone to my local bank, and clearly I sensed that the person going into the bank in front of the teller had some issues with memory. And the bank teller repeated herself 3 times to the person, as if maybe they'd get it after the 3rd time. And then when the person didn't get it, started to raise her voice, as maybe it's a hearing problem. And my buzzer went off, and I realized she doesn't have enough understanding. So she's not relating to the person in a way that they can take in the information. So in the process, there was a lot of conversations that I was having with merchants so that they could be more user-friendly when somebody comes into their establishment. So there was a lot of conversation. This event, is, as you mentioned, and I said, was in November, but we started it in May. There was a lot of discussion going on in May. Even, I have to say, I left this part out. I went to our public school, and during the week, the high school was also having an event with their biology students, where the students were learning about Alzheimer's and the effect that it has on an individual. So there was a lot of awareness that was being generated in different areas. We had an intergenerational aspect where the Girl Scouts were involved, and other students through a religious organization were involved, handing out flyers for market to let people know about the event. So I really was passionate about getting younger people involved in this event. I mentioned that we had a for-profit assisted living right in the community. And I asked them, have you ever gone into our library? And they hadn't been to the library. And through our commitment, this organization donated 12 books to the public library about Alzheimer's and Alzheimer's care. And the librarian had done her research about the book she wanted, gave the list to the assisted living, and they purchased the books. So it was real, as you say, real grassroots, real needs right in that community. I don't know if I'm answering your question. Did I answer it?
No. I think that it's very powerful. I think you're right when it's in the community versus, and it's pertinent to how do I live with the disease. What are the discussions we need to have? How do we protect our assets? How do we talk about driving? How do we, deal with behaviors? I mean, those are everyday things that people are just struggling with versus, this is the disease and here's what a PET scan looks like. And you can have, again, all of the medical model and terminology and the research, which is great. But when a person walks away from that, they don't have tools and they don't have resources to live with the disease. They've gotten educated, but there's a big difference. There's big difference between the two.
Absolutely. Another program that we had was our first responders. Is that a term that you all have?
Yep.
Like our and the first responders, the head of the first responders, when he heard that we were doing the program, approached me and said, we could use training. We are going into the homes, and we don't feel that we are as well equipped as we can to really provide the service in an effective way for the individual with Alzheimer's and to their caregiver. When we're called in, there's a crisis. We understand that. But the elements of somebody who has dementia, what they bring to the crisis and the concerns for the caregiver is what we would like to have more understanding so we could better serve when we're going into the home. So a lot of people are wanting information, and in not just, as you say, in the books, but really when I am involved in managing and interacting, I want to be better at it. Mm-hmm. People to stay in the community with a quality of life and not be isolated, and not be misunderstood.
Yep. Very, very true. Very, very true. And it's a piece that's difficult to balance, but the first responders or EMTs, the police, the fire, all of them, the guys driving the ambulance, it's critical because they are the ones that get called. I had a friend of mine who ended up calling the police one time because her father was really having a very difficult time, and he needed to be changed. I mean, he had an adult diaper on, and they couldn't change him, and he was getting physical, and they ended up calling the police, and she said, I wanted to melt. They handled this so beautifully, and they got my dad calmed down, and we sat down at the table, and she says he was just extraordinary, but she also knew that wasn't the norm. This person happened to have somebody who got aggressive with dementia in their own family, and so just knew from personal experience how to apply that. But he had said, we really need more training in this because not everybody has that. And she said it made a difference. She's like, he calmed him down instantly, just instantly. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I hope. I mean, my dream is to really see the U.S. become dementia friendly and take this on like the U.K. And I'm thrilled to death to be one of the Purple Angel ambassadors for the new global symbol for dementia, and trying to get people to understand the importance of, we need a symbol, just like the breast cancer, ribbon.
Yes.
This needs to be known. It needs to be displayed proudly. We need to have these conversations. Nobody should feel outed because they're ill or taking care of someone who is. We need to train businesses, like you said, if it's a bank, if it's a restaurant, if it's a park system. There's so many ways that we could do a better job. And a lot of what we would do with dementia could easily be applicable to many, many others as well, in terms of how we pose our questions, how we give directions, slowing down and actually having a relationship with our customers. Who'd have thought? I mean, we lost that so long ago. And that was so important to all of us, when we used to be able to walk in the bank and know our personal banker. And now you've got tellers telling you, hey, do you want to lower your interest rate on your mortgage? And you're like, who the heck are you, and why are you looking at my mortgage? I'm here to make a deposit. I mean,
but exactly. And it's who are you talking about my finances in a way that you're going to help me? I don't even know who you are. So
Vivian, we're having a really hard time hearing you. I don't know if you've moved the phone, so if you can repeat yourself, because it was like you were in the bottom of a can.
Can you hear me now?
Much better, much better. Yeah.
Okay. What I was saying is, it is a matter of saying, who are you talking about my finances? I don't even know you. So you have to appreciate the need to slow down and develop a relationship, because that individual is not going to be on board. You're talking too fast. You're being too intrusive. And it's not necessarily something that they are interested in. So I agree with you 100% that there's such a need to have that understanding, and we're here. We are here in droves with dementia, with the number of caregivers. We are so present in our community that the community needs to wake up and pay attention, because we're not going away.
Exactly. Now, with this event, I know that it can be duplicated. In one of your, in our conversations, you were talking about how every community is going to do this a little bit differently. And I love that you're not about being cookie cutter, saying, okay, I've developed the perfect thing, and we're just going to plaster it. We're going to do this the same exact way every place, because to me that's one of the biggest mistakes that's happening, is everybody is trying to develop this proprietary thing and they want to be it. And with dementia, there is not one way, and you really have to know your audience, and you have to know your community, and you have to find those people with passion to make it work. Otherwise, it's going to get really rote, and your message is going to be lost.
Yeah, I agree. But the way I do it, Lori, is I ask questions. Mm-hmm. I don't come in. I come in with the concept, but then I ask questions. Even with the event that I had in Cresco, I said, this is what I want to accomplish. How you do it in your presentation or your facility is your choice. We just need to say that it supports the concept, and that's how it evolved. I have been approached by another town, and that's how I start the conversation. I ask the three people in the room, from your experience, what have you experienced are the challenges? I wanted to hear from them what the challenges are, and the program then comes from that. It doesn't come from me going in and saying what the program is. And this next town has a very strong chamber of commerce, and so they felt it was really important to get the merchants on board. They're going to not have a week. They're going to have an Alzheimer's Awareness Day, where they're going to have workshops in the morning and a speaker, and that's our plan, and work breakouts in the afternoon also. But they wanted to have a meeting with the merchants from the town before that day to start to educate them ahead of time, because they really want the merchants to be savvy about and develop an understanding so that they can really embrace and provide a meaningful community for those who are affected and for those who are caring for somebody with Alzheimer's or related form of dementia. So it's not about, as you say, presenting, but asking the questions and having the conversation. And it's so much easier than people think to accomplish this. I'm not talking about, coordinating the event. That was extremely time-consuming to do it well. But the concept and the ideas will flow very quickly.
Well, and I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And whether in my case, I went to the mayor's office. But people might want to reach out to connect with, if they have a Rotary or a Department of Senior Services, or connect with the Alzheimer's Association, or collaborate with service providers, or attend one of their health fairs. It really can ignite so quickly if people are interested in doing this. And I'm certainly happy to make myself available to support people who might be interested in doing this. They can have my connect with my telephone number or connect me through email. If people are interested, I'm certainly happy to help them.
Well, and I think that's wonderful. And I wanted to ask you another question before we get into contact information. We only have about 6 minutes left here. I can't believe how
my
fast
goodness.
time goes here. But one of the things that I think is really important, too, when you're working on this is knowing who's a good match for your vision. And sometimes I think people get so excited with people saying, yes, I want to be involved, that they don't always assess, is this going to be a good match? And to me, that's a critical mistake. When you end up having somebody on the team that's not a good fit or is trying to all of a sudden shift the vision, and not that you don't want to be collaborative, but when when a person goes out on a mission like you have and you've got a vision that's so clear, I think it's important that you know who you align with and who you don't, and be able to let go. Did you ever run into, somebody who might have wanted to work with you and you just, this isn't a really good fit?
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you handle that?
How did I handle this? Is a good question. There were some aspects that came up that were discussed with a commitment, and there wasn't a follow through, and which was very disappointing to me. And I just really sort of had to let go. And not give it too much credit, and feel that it's only a piece, it's not the whole. So I could put it in a perspective, and it didn't bog me down. So that was a challenge that came up from this event. I do a lot of work vetting people ahead of time. And I have, as I work with my clients, Lori, I always have plan A and plan B. I never just have one plan. I have plan A, plan B, and maybe sometimes plan C, need be. Because you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Life isn't like that, as we know, especially in dementia. Anybody who's worked in it, you can't just have one plan. So that was another aspect. But I do a lot of vetting of people. Some people are say one thing and do something else. I have to do a lot of vetting. I need to speak to a lot of people. Have you heard that person speak? They might be great in the office, but not a great presenter. Are they engaging? Just being clear about what I needed for this to be successful, and if people were going to follow up or not, and then tolerating the disappointments.
Yep, which is very, very true. But having a good pulse on what is going on, and
nobody.
Really
the other thing is, I said from the beginning that nobody. This is not a venue to be self-promoting, and it cannot be. This is not a venue to sell yourself or sell your product. It won't be tolerated, and I was very, very clear about that. This is to really serve caregivers, and not to sell yourself.
Yep.
And that was a mantra, Lori, I said over and over again. This is, not that kind of event.
Yeah. Well,
and people did, they were respectful of that, I have to say.
Yeah. And I think that that's important because, if you are compelling with giving people information, they will want to know more about you. And you won't have to sell yourself. It just happens naturally. And it really is, I think, with all of these events, it's the greater good aspect. I know with my business, Alzheimer Speaks, this is so much bigger than me. I'm just a facilitator in all of this. is how I view it, and it's about raising everyone's voice and getting ideas and opinions out there so that people can create, their own formats that are going to work in their personal world and in their community. But we have to be able to feed the creativity by letting people know that they're not alone. And,
yes.
That there is hope. Well, I just think you are doing amazing, amazing work, and I just love what you're doing. I don't know, with your businesses, are you using kind of the dementia wear and the Purple Angel symbol at all? Because that's something that could really tie in nicely, and I'd love to talk with you.
I haven't yet, but it's something I certainly want to look into.
Okay.
Because, there could be force with being part of that community, too. Will make a difference.
Yeah, I would love to have a conversation offline with you regarding that, and because I just think that that's a perfect fit, and it's another way for businesses to take what you're doing and educate their staff and educate the public, just by putting a sticker in their door. It's something that will stay with them long after the event. Plus, I'd love for them all to, if they want to become dementia friendly, if they decide to become part of that, they're more than welcome to be part of the Alzheimer's Speaks resource website where you can list a community, you can list a business, and then businesses can also list their services on there as well. So not just about being dementia friendly, but what kind of service are you? Are you a if it's a gas station or a financial plan or a bank or a medical facility, it doesn't make any difference. But people are going to want to know where these places are, and so we've established something fairly simple for people to work with and be able to utilize. So I'd love to talk with anybody and anyone listening on our show regarding this as well. So how do people reach you, Vivian? What's the best numbers and best URLs?
Okay. Well, there are 3 ways. They can email me. My email address, I'll spell it out. It's my first name, Vivian, Vivian KORNER @gmail.com. I can be reached at 201-960-4277. And on my website, there's also a contact, and my website is www.viviangreen, like the color, Korner, KORNER.com. Vivian Green Korner is one word. So those are the 3 ways.
Wonderful. Well, again, keep up the great work, and let's definitely connect about the Purple Angel and the Dementia Aware, because I think that would be a wonderful thing to be able to add to what you are already doing. So you have just a blessed holiday season, and thank you so much for sharing your vision with our audience. And please, for those that are listening, Vivian also speaks and trains as well as helping organize these events. So please reach out to her. She's a wealth of information. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Have a happy holiday to you and all your listeners. A healthy and a happy holiday.
Okay, and you do well on that storm that's hanging out there too. So be careful.
Right now it's just pretty. It's not stormy. It's just beautiful.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. Well, great. You have a wonderful day. Thanks again, Vivian.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to go ahead and do our mid-program highlights and just update you on some of the information that Alzheimer's Speaks has pulled together for you. Our last radio show was on preparing for happy holidays, and we had Harry Urban and Rick Phelps with us. and they are two men living with dementia, and they gave us some great tips. Our next show coming up will be on the 17th, and we're going to be talking about protecting your assets and also how to stay in your home the second act of life. And so we're going to really be talking about possible changes that you can do so that you can stay there as long as possible. We, on the 24th, are going to have expert Teepa Snow with us, and I'm really, really excited about that. We are also going to have Christine Luca with us, and she wrote a book, What Else Can I Do But Laugh? And then Dementia Chats, we had one on November 26th where we discussed how to design kind of a happy holidays for a person with dementia and those around them. And our next one is going to be today, and we're going to be a little free-flowing today. I really want to get audience participation in. I'm sure we'll talk still a little bit about the holidays, but there's just so much going on. And then for blogs, we have quite a few here that I'm going to mention. We had one on dementia-friendly businesses and communities, which actually was an interview by Caregivers Unite with Dr. Gordon Atherley, and that's another radio show. There is a very powerful video, I think, worth watching that a son did about his journey with dementia with his mom. There's an article on the Caregiver Control Panel, which I think you'll find interesting. There's also the Lifestyle of the Super Brain from the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, which is now available. We've got a link to that. Our intern did an article called They Have Dementia, What Can They Do? There's also a post. I am a blogger for Verizon, and with some tools that might be of interest to caregivers. And let's see, what else do we have on here? Ramsey Barauri and I had a discussion. This was a video regarding Alzheimer's disease and caregiving. Dishing Up Nutrition, there's a link to their radio show. They were talking about health and coconut oil, and they had an author who wrote a book about her husband and coconut oil, so you might find that interesting. And then there was a wonderful story, an insider's look at true love with Charlie and Elizabeth that is Deborah Schaus wrote, and it really is a cool thing about a person with dementia who is single and finds love, and it's really quite touching. And the last I want to mention is there is a play coming up here in Minnesota called My Mother Has Four Noses. And there's an article titled Dementia is Being Brought Out of the Closet and Onto the Stage. And it's going to be here in Minnesota December 16th and 17th at the Guthrie Theater. If you're in town, we'd love to see you there. I will be there both days. On the 17th, we're actually going to be doing a talk back. And it's a musical comedy, but bring your Kleenex because it is very, very touching as well. Again, I'm just going to highlight really quickly the Alzheimer's Disease International. You know, if you're looking for a connection, they are a great resource. The Lewy Body Association, as well as the Frontal Temporal Lobe and the Aphasia Association. The Tau clinical trial, go to Alzheimer's Studies. And I have to put in a plug for my web designer, too. I just absolutely adore Patrick and all of them there. They have just been a blessing to me with custom A design. If you're looking for somebody, check them out. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next guest, who is just as fabulous as our first guest. And I know this, too, is going to be a very interesting conversation. Throughout her life, Loretta Woodward Veney, who is the author of Being My Mom's Mom, has chronicled her family's events through journals, photos, and videos, seeking to capture every single moment. After learning that her mother, Doris, was the first female in their family to suffer from dementia, she began documenting the details of doctor's visits and recording people and places and things as a substitute to lost memory. Loretta is a motivational teacher and trainer who has delivered speeches and presentations and conducted workshops throughout the U.S. and Europe, and offers just a wealth of encouragement through her book. Welcome, Loretta.
Hi, thank you very much.
Well, I'm really excited to be here. I love your book. The cover of it, the feel of it. It's just it's just a great journey that you've documented. So I'm really anxious for you to talk about why did you decide to write the book?
Okay. Thanks, Lori. I love your website and this talk radio show because, as you pointed out, and the first caller, Vivian, as well, I think the more we get the word out, the better it is for everyone, because we're all shocked and surprised by the intrusion of the disease into our lives. So the primary reason I wrote the book, to be really honest, is just therapy for myself. And I was so shocked by the diagnosis itself that I knew I wasn't alone in this, but I felt alone at the moment. So I said, well, let me just write everything down, and I'm sure that'll be helpful to me and hopefully helpful to others.
Okay, which makes sense. There's so many people who go on this journey that are, just realize the wealth of information that they have, and they want to make a difference to the next guy, which I think is extremely, extremely important. And I think, your book definitely does that. What roles, in the book, you go through a lot of different things, but what roles does forgiveness play, do you feel, in being the best caregiver that you can be?
I think forgiveness really is significant. I say that as soon as the diagnosis comes about, I think sort of the whole life starts over right there from that point. Everything that has happened in the past really goes right out the window. And I say that because if you don't forget about things, or you're waiting for some apology that, of course, now isn't ever going to come, and you withhold whatever care you should be given because of things that happened to you 15, 20 years ago, it's going to be really bad for your loved one who's the patient. And, they didn't ask to get the disease. They're sorry themselves. Maybe they can't have conversations with you that are important to family dynamics. And so that was very helpful for me, saying, okay, this is day one. And, I love my mother, and I'm going to do whatever it is that I need to do, in spite of the fact that there's still questions I'd love to have answered about, our, family dynamics. But, it's just so unfair to hold something against a person or punish them in some way for something that they can no longer control or contribute to.
Very, very true. And it's, forgiveness is not an easy thing for us to do sometimes.
That is very true.
Especially in families, because some of this stuff, it's been around a long, long time, and it's the way it's always been.
Very true. For me, I think it was, difficult in a way, because when she was first diagnosed in 2006, so this is almost going into year 8 for us, she still very much could have had a very coherent conversation about some of the family dynamics. It was just when another relative was dying and shared the family secret 3 years later, by then my mother couldn't have a conversation really about anything. So some friends had suggestions, well, just try to force her to talk about it. Well, who does that help? Really nobody. And at that point, people say, oh, you weren't mad at all? Yes, I was very upset about it, but I was mad for all of 20 minutes, and then you move on. And I felt like I didn't have any choice but to do that.
Yep. Well, and there are so many families that hold on for so long sometimes to the different things. And, I mean, I've had families tell me, I didn't really like my mom or dad. They weren't very nice to me. This was a very abusive situation. You know, how am I supposed to be loving to, you know, this person who I grew up thinking was a monster, and now it's my responsibility? And there can be some real struggles out there for some families to go through. Others are really surprised, going, "Oh my gosh, this isn't the person I knew." And sometimes a person can really change too, and they're like, I'm so thankful to be able to get to know this person. She's so sweet. She's so kind. I didn't see that before. You know,
I think that's so true. Absolutely. One of the things I wrote was, you know, I sort of love who my mother is every day, because, you know, there are vastly different aspects to her personality. You know, now I'm grateful that she's, you know, hasn't reached that stage or may have missed it or whatever, where, I mean, she's not mean or aggressive or anything. She's, you know, very calm at this point, which was not how she was earlier in life. So this is kind of a good point for us. But she is very different, you know, from day to day. And so I love her for who she is on that day. And I think that helps as well. You don't hold on to what she may have said yesterday or said or did something that you didn't like, and you know, you try to treat every day as a vastly different experience.
Yeah, and I think that's a great approach, and kind of goes into my next question was going to be, do you have some strategies for increasing patience when dealing with a loved one who has dementia? Because we lose our patience sometimes, more than we care to admit.
That's so true. I mean, patience, you know, the chapter is really called "Patience Really Is a Virtue," and I had found this really great article that I used that have really helped me realize, you know, what causes you to be impatient or in a hurry or all these kinds of things. And so I think I learned so much about where the impatience comes from. And one of the things I learned was about triggers, and, you know, what is it that brings out the impatience in you. And I think all of us have vastly different triggers and things that you know, set us off or that we really can't tolerate. And then once you understand what the triggers are, then you can, you know, better plan. And for me, it was about time. I hate being late for anything. And so once I sort of did that, I put procedures in place so that my mom would always be on time, you know, build in a lot of extra time for looking for this or dressing her again if she's taken all her clothes off before I get her to the doctor and things like that. So I allowed time in that for changing clothes and these kinds of things. And once I really understood that, that was, I can't even say how helpful that was, because there are things, I think, we can't fix every situation, but I think there are certainly circumstances where we can control, you know, the things that trigger us. So that's probably one of the first ones. And then the second thing that I do a lot anyway, I said I save photos and all that in the introduction that you gave, and so I'm very good at visualizing other things. So when there's a difficult situation in the car or in the home where we're trying to get, you know, mom to do something that she really doesn't want to do, I just simply visualize the situation being over. I mean, it isn't going to last forever, so I try to work through it as best I can without losing my patience in the process.
Which is really, really smart. A couple other things that you had in this patience is a virtue, which I thought from this article that you read was building self-confidence.
Yes.
You know, putting on the positive glasses, changing your attitude, ding, 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 you know, because our attitude feeds their attitude. And like you said, visualize what the heck you want to happen. And these are skills not just when we're dealing with somebody with dementia, but throughout our life. And that's, I think, one of the beautiful things about this disease that's overlooked is so many of the lessons are applicable to all our life.
And people who are just friends who bought the book, I think they say that too. It helped them, even though their parents don't have dementia. A lot of the concepts they felt were very helpful, and most of them mentioned the patient's aspect as one of them. So that's been great. The positive piece of it, people are surprised that, it's there, and I list it because people think I'm a very positive person anyway. But I think when everybody's challenged when, your loved one says, the same thing, 15, 20, 30 times in a row, and people around you, that's the number one question I get asked when we're out in public. Do you know how many times your mother just asked you that? And how do you stay so calm and just keep repeating the answer without raising your voice or changing your tone? And I think it's all about the positivity part of it, too. But that is absolutely the number one question I get about the patients.
Yeah, and it's very frustrating. I have something that I'll mention called Your Memory Chip, which is a free tool on my website. But it worked for me. What I found for me to really help me with my patients was I had interviewed just thousands of caregivers, and I'd always ask them, what do you have to focus on? And they would rattle off this list. And it was all tasks, and all the tasks were about the person they were caring for. So, of course, they were person-centered. But what I realized when I started really listening deeply and truly was that every one of those tasks, as they stated it, had an emotion attached to it. And I could tell that the emotion was typically negative because of the twang in their voice. It was things that they didn't want to do. And so what I found was that we can't be person-centered when emotionally we're still making it about us. And so for me, I switched from, and I was a big task girl. I mean, I literally walked around with a checklist on a clipboard every day of everything I had to get done because I was a busy lady,
I think we're the same person, Lori.
Yeah, and I felt really good making those big checks or crossing them off, because it was like I accomplished something, so anyways, I switched from really focusing on my tasks that I needed to do, but I told myself to focus on three simple things. Was my mom safe? Was she happy? And was she pain-free? And when I focused on those three things and the task was secondary, I did the task differently.
Right, exactly.
And I would sit down and I would appreciate the little things. I'd have the conversations. I was calmer because I wasn't in this panic to get things done, and I was actually building my relationship. And I had a great relationship with my mom, but in this process, I was able, even though she was declining, I was able to build on it. And
that's very true, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the being happy part is, I think, really significant because it's really about them being happy and not you. And I always tell people, any presentation or anything I give, I said, from the moment really of the diagnosis, it becomes all about them and not about you. And you have to learn to let a lot of things go. And I remember talking in the book about taking my mom to see shows we had always seen, all our lives, and then she didn't remember it or appreciate it or even understand it. And so I realized I was going for me and not for her. And, it was no longer necessary to keep up that particular tradition or memory when it wasn't making her happy either. So, to get rid of that frustration, you just do something else. And so once I learned that as well, and it plays right into the strategies that you use as well.
Well, and, that's just makes so much sense, but it's something that we overlook so often because we get so used to our routines and our traditions. Well, this is the way it's always been. But when you really look at it and go, who's really getting something out of this? She's not happy.
Right.
I'm not happy. What are we keeping this tradition for? It's not.
Exactly.
It's not meeting the needs. And I just had I've had several conversations on our last radio show as well as on Dementia Chats and some articles lately on happy holidays. And people get so stuck in traditions and instead of having the big family get-togethers, have several small ones so that she can participate, and so that it's not so overstimulating. And you can have lights, but don't have the blinking lights. You can have this, but change this. And then everybody's happier. Everyone's more relaxed, and you're going to find more joy. So sometimes, as much as routines are critical to people living with dementia and dealing with it, there still has to be adjustments. We still have to use our noggin to say, is it time to change? Because, none of us stay stagnant throughout our lives, so I don't know why we think a person with dementia should.
That's very true.
It really is kind of silly, but we do it all the time, And
it takes a minute to get have that sink in. I think that's we're all in denial. I think in the beginning. So great point, though.
Exactly. I would like you to talk too about, how does a family build a successful team? So medical and legal and supportive for someone. How did you guys do that? And what are some tricks and tips?
Okay, well, the two primary words for me, for anybody on our team, is competence. It's the first one, and dignity is the second. And competence in that they know whatever it is that their specialty is, be it legal, whether I need to become her guardian, or, medical, is this the right medication for her? Is she going to be safe? Those kinds of things. And then support, mostly for support. They're, my very small family at this point. But does, all of those people taken together, do they, know what it is that, their specialty is? Are they good at it? Do they have the bedside manner that goes along with it? But I think the most important thing for me really is the dignity for my mom. She is still, a very vibrant person. She's going to be 85 in February, but just, no arthritis, no nothing. She stands straight up. She can look right at you. And I want everybody to treat her, like the person that she is. She can't answer all questions correctly, but she certainly is, in the room and present with her. And I think for our team, I want people to embrace her and to, be welcoming to her in whatever the situation is, because that keeps her anxiety level in a place that I can absolutely deal with, and, it keeps her happy, which was your word as well. So those are the two primary things, and I'm willing to look everywhere to get it, even if it takes me a long time.
I love your two rules, competency and dignity. What a beautiful thing when they come together, because, man, we have all dealt with incompetent people and people who are disrespectful. And, you double ante that up and you have a horror story for sure. But even if one of the two is missing, it really it complicates things, not only for the person with dementia, but for those who love them. And it's just real, and that's not too much to ask for. Or it
is not, and I'm willing to, basically fire a person too, which I was going to, change doctors for this one doctor who I thought was just incredibly disrespectful, and a lot of other things as well. And just as I was going to be in the process of changing doctors, he had a serious illness himself, and left his practice, and so that really necessitated me not having to do that. So I was happy to be in a different place where I can get a new doctor. Sorry for his circumstances, of course, but really happy that I was not going to have to deal with him and his brusqueness and other things that I felt was very uncomfortable for my mother. And so you have to just be strong enough to make a change if that person isn't whatever the requirements are that we all have out there, and those are my two. So if someone doesn't meet that, I am more than willing to find someone who is, because I want her to be, as you say, comfortable and happy. And then this particular doctor made her incredibly uncomfortable. She was very nervous, and she just looked so sad, and she was very intimidated by him, and that was just not a good thing for me. And I thought, we're never coming back here, and I was thrilled to be rid of him.
Yeah. Well, and that's nothing anybody should have to put up with if they've got dementia or not. I mean,
Sure, absolutely.
No, that's just a good rule of thumb for all of us to utilize when we're looking to hire somebody. Now, you have a chapter in here too, and I have to have you talk about this, about music therapy, because that is just so near and dear to my heart. So can you talk a little bit about that chapter?
Sure. In it, I talk about music and pets, and there's some other little things that can really be helpful when we're trying to, make our loved ones more comfortable and with less anxiety. And for the music, actually, it was really brought to my attention by a nurse that comes often to the group home where my mom is, and she asked me if I knew that my mother knew all the words in this particular Episcopal hymnal, and I thought, no, I'd never seen my mom sing any of the verses without the book in front of her. And she said, did you know if you sing a verse, your mom will sing the next verse without the book? And I thought, no, there's no way she can do that. But, of course, she could. So we started, I can't sing at all, but the nurse can really sing. And so, they'd be, singing these songs. And so we started routinely going through the hymnal. And the nurse had recorded some that she thought were my mom's favorite. So then there's some instrumental versions of it, and we just start playing and singing, and she just smiles, and we don't even use the book. I have to use the book because I don't know the words. But, it's been, incredible. I love seeing the glow on her face, and we do the same thing in the car. My mother, my entire life, was incredibly anxiety-filled, even getting in the car and going around the corner. So thanks to Sirius XM Radio, with the stations that she remembers from the 30s and 40s, I turn those on, and there she is with Frank Sinatra and singing the words, yay. And so what we try to do is program those, stations in and just sing along and work with that. That's when I think she's happiest. She seems to be really proud, if that's a great word, that, she remembers all the words and that, and we just have a great time. It's a very significant bonding time for us, which is really cool.
Very, very fun. My mom just adores music, too, and I didn't realize how calming that was. I never, and I've always liked music. Cannot sing a note. I'll scream in the car and in the shower when I'm alone. But what I have learned over my 30-year journey with my mom now is I'll sing sometimes at the nursing home because nobody cares. It's
nobody cares. That's true.
Nobody cares. And that was like a big revelation to me. Like, really? And so my mom, even in her end stages, says very few words, is in a wheelchair, needs to be fed and toileted, everything. She will hear music, and she actually, and it blows me away because I've never seen her do this all of growing up, never, ever. And like 3 times she has done this amazing shimmy. Now, this is a woman who has no control over her body, and all of a sudden she'll be listening to the music, and she's looking up at the ceiling like she sees somebody, and she does a shimmy like Dancing in the Stars would be proud of. And I just I'm scrambling for my camera and trying to get a picture, and of course I never have it. And it's such a precious moment,
That really,
to be able
really
to see
is.
that.
I love the picture part. That's cool.
Oh, yeah, and she'll, or sometimes, and I have a ton of, I shouldn't say a ton of videos, but a friend of mine offered to videotape my mom while another friend sang with her. And, again, this was probably 3 years ago when she was in end stages, and I think I have probably 10 short videos on my Alzheimer Speaks YouTube channel. And I've walked into conferences and seen my mom on the big screen because there's been literally tens of thousands of hits on these things, and it just shows my mom going from a sleeping state or being nonverbal and kind of that blank stare to singing. You see her hands moving, and you see her facial expressions, and it's just incredible. It's absolutely. That
really is cool. I'm lucky that my mom can still dance. She's always loved to dance, took dance classes, herself as teenagers, and continued to like to dance as an adult. And when we had our 25th anniversary celebration, people asked, "Are you going to bring your mother?" And I was determined to bring, my mom. I had somebody specifically, watching her so she couldn't run off because she's pretty fast. So during the reception part, she just danced and danced and danced. And, she has such a sense of humor about her dementia. And she had danced like 3 songs in a row without sitting down. And I said, "Mom, aren't you, getting, tired? Don't you want to rest?" And she says, "Oh, the dementia, she forgot to be tired." And so we all just laughed and laughed. And she just has the best sense of humor about it. But I was really getting worried. And that's probably one of, my favorite videos. And, she can sing to the words and dance, at the same time. Really just a cool thing. And I think, as you said, I think the small moments like that, part of my visualization is thinking back to those times. We had a really big incident right after that anniversary thing where, she passed out and everything. And I remember while I was waiting for news and that kind of thing, and, just visualizing back to our, great moments just a few days prior to that. So I use those kinds of moments to, get through all of the bad things because, who knew that she'd still be singing and dancing when she can barely answer a question at all. So I can't explain that, but I'm very happy for it.
Yeah, and with the dancing, my mom used to love to dance too, and as the disease progressed with her, pretty soon I was dancing with her when she was in her wheelchair, and then that didn't work so much anymore, so then we did what we call the hand dance, where I would just take her hand in mine and we would dance to the music, both sitting down, and now we're down to a finger dance, but we're still connected to that music because it's so powerful. The emotions are there, the history. If any of us sit back and think of how many times have you cried in your car or burst out in laughter when you've heard a song because it brought you back to a moment and a connection. And people with dementia haven't lost that. So it's free. It can be simple and inexpensive and bring all of you joy and calm. Coral Health, who is one of the companies that I absolutely adore, has what they call music prescriptions, and they can actually get music to help wake you up, help you eat, put you to sleep, calm you down. And it's all research based. So this is something we should not take for granted at all.
And you mentioned music first earlier too, and I use that. I have that on my iPhone as well. So whatever
good.
We have.
They're with Coral Health, and they are just absolutely wonderful. The app is
really
great.
Is.
They've started to expand. I think they're doing stuff for newborns now and cancer, therapy and stuff as well. So, check it out. It's Coral Health.
I didn't know that there was specific music for sundowning. I had no idea that there were. So I've really learned a lot from it, since she does love music, so much. It's just such a great, like you said, it's virtually free. So, why not use it? And I think that's been really great. And the other thing she really loves, that's sort of actually post the book, something she's been doing since it came out, and that's reading out loud. And we also can't explain that, but no matter where we are, like you said, who cares what she's doing? So people, may stare if she's reading out loud, in the CVS or something. But we read a lot to her. Different. I did a Thanksgiving prayer with her on Thanksgiving morning, and just a variety of different things that I know, calm her down and make her feel good. It doesn't even matter how old the book is or anything like that, or if it's news. If it's not new, she doesn't care. So these are things that we really enjoy doing together as well. So I never knew I'd be reading to my mom, but it's a really great experience too.
Oh, neat. Yeah, it's powerful stuff. It's really, really powerful stuff. Now, you also have a chapter, in here about heartbreak. And can you talk to us a little bit about heartbreak? Because this can be a devastating disease. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, and heartbreak can hit us on multiple levels many times.
Sure. I think the biggest thing, I think, is sometimes just not being able to share things in, the family that are going on. You have to keep a lot of things to yourself, and, that's always really scary because you don't know what to do and, how to, really deal with it. And I think the first piece of big thing that my mom and I had was really about her checkbook. My mom was really big about her funds, and so the first, real exercise we had to do was to take over the checkbook. And she kept asking, "Why can't I keep my own money? Where are you taking my checkbook?" And I think that's the most, some of the earliest drama we had, and she was really upset about it, and that I was taking all her money, and I don't have any money now, and these kinds of things. So we finally got through that, but it was just terrible. I did actually, based on her reaction, I kind of did feel like I was robbing my own mother. So that was just really kind of a big issue. And then I think one of the most life-changing things for me was about our family secret. And basically my entire life, I had always wondered why my father left home, after delivering me, left literally a day or so later, and never came back. And I was always very curious what happened and, why were that. And there were a variety of stories about that, but I never found out the real story until after my mom had been diagnosed. So basically the story was, my dad had attempted to see my sister and I, but that my mom had basically forbidden him to see us. And so my whole life I thought my dad had just left and gone away and run away and that kind of thing. But as it turned out, when he did try to see us, it was my mother who basically paid him off, so to speak, to do that. And I was crushed, beyond belief to learn that particular piece of information because, she not only had kept that from me, but also, it really changed the course of my life because that by then it was too late to meet him. He had died. And so I really was just heartbroken, and that was, I think, one of the hardest things we had to overcome. But again, I think as upset as I was about it, it really did change the course of my life, so to speak, or it answered a lot of questions that I'd had for more than 40 years. So very few people get answers after that length of time. But I think how I approached it was whatever she did, even though I didn't like it, whatever she did, she thought it was the best decision for her as a parent at that time, and I just needed to let it go. And I think it is one of the hardest things I ever had to do because I certainly want to have a conversation about it, but, was unable to. So I think, those kinds of things, family dynamics that change are, really are heartbreaking. And then you end up keeping secrets of your own that you can't share with your parent either. So one of the greatest heartbreaks from that perspective for me was not being able to tell my mother that my sister had died. And that was hard. My sister had MS, and in the late stages we kept trying to get my mom and she together via Skype, but she had very slurred speech by that time, so my mother thought she was drunk, and it really scared her to talk to her, so we didn't do it anymore. But because of the way dementia patients, grieve and sort of over and over and over, because they keep asking the same question, where's so-and-so? And they say, oh, they died. And to sort of prevent that, I decided that was simply not information that my mother needed to know or basically could do anything with. And thankfully her neurologist 100% agreed with that, and we just chose not to tell her. And to this day, she, I think, still believes that she only had one child. So, because people always want to know, what are you going to do when she asks you about it, if she ever does? Because I do have a niece, and so she can't make the connection about where the niece came from because she only has one child. So, for right now, that's the answer.
Yeah, and that that rolls right back into what we started on forgiveness.
Sure.
And being able to let that go. My family, all three of us kids have gotten divorced. My mom and dad knew that my older brother did, but and then my dad passed away. And so he wasn't around, but then we chose not to tell Mom that Scott got divorced and I got divorced. And I remember speaking about that at a conference one time, and someone said, "Well, how could you not tell her?" And I said, "Because it's not about us.
Right.
It's about her."
Right.
And that would be really upsetting to her, and you can't rationalize why that happened. And so, and it's hard to think that she doesn't know, and maybe she does in her own way because,
That's
like
correct.
my husband's not around and normally he would be. I don't know, but, we just chose not to upset her. With
I think it's so hard to calm them down once they get upset. And I think one of the biggest, grief periods and heartbreak for me, and I simply just realized that I sort of had two mothers, my Aunt Franny, who I talk about a lot in the book, and who was my person I bounced everything off. And because she was still around, it made sort of grieving for my mom a little easier. And my aunt died in August. And so I'm still, processing that as well. Well, interestingly, on her birthday a few weeks ago, my mom and I used to always go see Franny on her birthday and have this birthday cake. And I thought, wow, what am I going to do if she asked? So I said, do you know what today is? And she didn't remember exactly, but when I told her it was November 18th, and she said, oh, it's someone's birthday. And then I told her she remembered that, but didn't remember who. I told her who. And then she says, are we having birthday cake? And I thought, So I waited a minute, and she said, let's sing happy birthday to her. So for 20 minutes in the car, we sang the worst rendition ever of happy birthday to Franny. And it was just, and so it took all my sadness away. And then, she right on cue, she'd say, sing it again, and then happy birthday it was hysterical. But I was so sad on that day, but that singing of happy birthday over and over really lifted the moment, but she never once asked, why aren't we having cake? So we, sort of skated, through that. But, and I think you just make these decisions, maybe not so much on spur of the moment, but whatever's going on at the time, that's kind of how I've gotten through it. But just there is so much heartbreak, in almost anything associated really with this disease. But going back to our support team part, whether that's your spouse or your children, we're blessed to have a wonderful granddaughter at this point, and she just makes me laugh. And it seems like on my saddest days, I always get to see her and kind of lift right up. So we just have to surround ourselves with these kinds of different support elements that get us through, these really bad times. So in spite of the fact that my Aunt Franny's gone, I can't really bounce things off her. I won't say I replaced her, because I certainly have not, but you find other ways to get the support that you need to care for yourself as well.
Yeah, very, very true. And I think giving ourselves permission, like you said with your mom made the best decision possible that she felt at the time, for everyone concerned. And, we have to understand that, over time we learn, new things. We, our perceptions change because of what we've learned and how we've lived our lives. And so we can't judge the past. The past is what the past is, and we have to accept it and move forward and not let it interfere with each and every moment that we have left. Because it's such a critical thing. What are some of the most successful therapies that have worked for you? It sounds like music definitely was one of those. When you're engaging your mom, what other things?
Well, we do a lot of exercise, which is really cool for her too. And I'm surprised at how much of it she remembers. When she lived alone in her retirement community, there were two of her favorite classes were Tai Chi, and then also something called Stretch and Flex, one of which she led. And so I have the DVDs of those classes, and it's amazing to me how many of the Tai Chi moves she still remembers. And it keeps her really calm, and it keeps her limbs moving. We can do it together, and we have all the tapes and DVDs at the group home. So that's something that we like to do together as well. And then I try and, even when we go for walks that she's been on, millions of times, we still point out things that are new and different, just trying to, keep her mind active in terms of the different seasons. We took her to see the leaves change and those kinds of things. So mostly it's really about getting her out, because she is so just still a very virile person and can still do so many things. She walks as fast as I do in some cases, and so just really trying to keep her active. And so that's been probably one of the most successful things. I think people are really surprised that she doesn't have a cane or anything at this point. So for me, it really is about continuing to get her out into the community, as long as she's having a fairly good day, and then just try to keep her moving as long as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is. And, keeping active is good for all of us. I mean, it's good for our bodies to move. I know when I sit too long now, it's like I need an oil can. I'm like, And
exactly.
And so, a person who is aging and who is ill needs that movement as well. And,
right.
If that's sitting in a chair because they can't walk and moving their arms or their legs, there's different ways to be able to still do that movement and be connected.
Sure.
and make it fun. Don't make it a chore. Make it fun. One last question I wanted to ask you was, how do you avoid the guilt over whether you're making the right decisions? Because I think that's something that haunts us all.
It does haunt us. I think you really have to just have confidence, going back to really the patience thing where it talked about having self-confidence. You really have to have self-confidence in the decisions that you make, that you are doing the best for them. So like the three things that you mentioned, that they're safe and happy and all those things. And so if I am sure that is the outcome, that she is going to be happy, that she's going to be safe, then, I have to let go of the guilt. And I think the most guilt I had, in our personal case was moving her from her retirement community to this group home. And the group home really was a idea, sort of a compromise. We wanted to bring her here to our house. My husband loves my mother, but we had promised my mom, my sister, and I years ago that we would never, force her word, to live with us. So the group home that was very close to me was a great thing. But I am somewhat guilty about not being able to bring her here where she could be with us, all the time. But it's not what she wanted. So as long as I can afford it, that's where she'll be. So you do second guess yourself sometimes. But when I look at her, I go there several times a week, and when I look at her, and she smiles, and she thinks she's living on her own. Oh, thanks for coming to my apartment. Oh, you're welcome. I mean, it's wonderful. She's very, very happy. So I try to just convince myself that this is the best thing, and she is safe, and she is happy and very secure. And even if it doesn't seem popular at the time, it is the right thing. So second guessing yourself can just bring about so much anxiety and make whatever the situation is that you're facing, worse. And I think I had one very expensive lesson that I learned putting her in daycare, which she, hated, and then saving the money and then taking her out when she refused to go. So, and I said, I just wanted to keep her active. But again, that was about me. It wasn't about what she wanted to do, was sitting, read, and not do a lot of activities with other people. So just one of those lessons.
Yep. Well, and I think, too, one of the things that I learned, my mom moved into a nursing home, but we were really lucky. She asked to move into the nursing home because my dad was there. But one of the things that I will never, ever, ever forget as long as I live was the day that I walked in, and it was a turning point for me because I had all this guilt about, she should live with us. This was the plan, blah, 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 blah. And we got along great. My folks had a room here when they came to visit. I mean, my family was very accepting. There really were no issues. But she wanted to be with my dad when my dad ended up having to go to a nursing home. And she said, we've been together 49 and a half years, and I'm not leaving him now. And it was like, oh, my gosh, how do you argue with that, And so she moved in, but one day I walked in, and some of my listeners have probably heard this story before, but I think it's so critical for those who haven't because it was a big letting go moment and a big aha for me. But I walked in, and my mom was in this horseshoe group in chairs, and the activities person was sitting in the middle with like an Oprah magazine, and it was just filled with all these bright, beautiful flowers, and they were going around, and each person was saying what that reminded them of, and they were reminiscing, and they were so engaged, and I just remember thinking, I couldn't give my mom that group of feeling like she's has a peer group, and we all like our friends. And I'm sure your mom's got her friends at her group home, and it's her community, and family is one thing, but friends is a whole nother thing. And,
very true.
Friends help us feel purposeful and that we belong and that we're independent, and family can do that, but in a very different way. And so don't underestimate the power of others. If you're pulling somebody in the home to help you, if you're placing somebody, really think about what's the best overall situation, for your loved one. Well,
definitely.
Loretta, this has just been a wonderful conversation, and again, I just love your book, Being My Mom's Mom, A Journey Through Dementia from a Daughter's Perspective, and I really encourage people to get out there and purchase this book. You've got a lot of great information in here. How do people get your book, Loretta? What's the best way?
Well, it's on Amazon. That's the way it's probably had the most exposure, so Being My Mom's Mom on Amazon. It's also on my website, which is pretty easy. It's just my name, www.lorettaveney.com. And so those are probably the two primary ways to get a hold of the book and get a hold of me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending this last hour with us. It was very fun having this conversation, and
it was great.
And your family nothing but the best over the holidays, and continued success with your book. And for those of you that would purchase the book, don't forget, when you read the book, do a review too, because that just always helps our authors, if you can do a review for them as well. Well, thank you again so much for being with us. Really appreciate your time today, Loretta. And
thank you, Lori.
And again, listeners, you can just click on the web page there and find Loretta's website and get right to it and order that book or contact her if you'd like. And Loretta, do you do presentations at all in terms of speaking?
I do. I've done a ton of presentations already for the book, which has really been surprising. So they can contact me. LWVeney at AOL.com is my primary email, but it's accessible on the website as well. And I do, I've done libraries and coffee houses and memory care facilities. I donated the half the proceeds of all the money I raised in November, which was National Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and that was just a phenomenal experience. And getting out, I did one thing a day to bring more awareness to Alzheimer's disease, and it was probably one of the best months of my life. And I did 11 presentations during November, including another radio show. So it was fabulous.
Wonderful.
I learned so much from the about the disease and about all the support, as your first caller was saying today, Vivian was saying, there's so much support out there. You just have to get out there and talk about it and find people in similar situations that you're in as well. And I think I learned more in the month of November than I did in the 3 years, the first 3 years that my mom had the disease. So I'm very proud of that and hope to continue to become a caregiver facilitator and some of those other things, and to keep the awareness going. So I appreciate everything that you do as well. This is a phenomenal venue that you have, and I really appreciate you having me on your show.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much, and you have a wonderful holiday, okay?
And you too, Lori. Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. In wrapping up the show, I just do want to remind everyone that today we do have our Dementia Chats webinar. That'll be starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central, and that is noon Pacific Time. And Harry Urban will be with us. I think Michael Ellenbogen's going to be able to join us as well. And we really encourage people to participate during those talks. You'll be able to find more information on that on our Facebook, Dementia Chat's Facebook page. I'll be posting that shortly with that link, and also on the blog. Have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye now.
Hi, everyone. This is Meredith from the Senior Fitness with Meredith podcast, where I discuss all things for seniors, from fitness, your health and wellness journeys, how to be all over strong and beyond. I also have my mini podcast called Motivation with Meredith. It's a great, quick motivational pick-me-up for your days. Join me, listen now, search for Senior Fitness with Meredith on your favorite podcast platform.